Oh, I'm not happy being held. I don't like to be held. Oh. Hmm. Hey guys, how are ya? Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven. Cheers. I'm at the employee parking lot. I had to park at the very end. Right now I'm debating whether to go to the shuttle from the economy parking lot over to the airport or just walk. I might just walk. I need the steps. But isn't Buddy the most handsome cat? He is so sweet. He'll let me do anything to him, absolutely anything, except hold him. I could pick him up by his ears and he'd be like, Dad, stop. When I hold him, oh my God, he's burning. I'm like, I have a blowtorch to his face. The poor thing, he's so dramatic. I wonder where he gets it. But I am going to, the only reason I'm here at the post office, the airport, is to go to the post office. I have a ball cap that I ordered from Amazon. I'm hoping it's there. I ordered another pair of glasses from Zulu like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I'm hoping they're there as well. And what else is going on? Nothing happening today. Just hanging out around the house. Between today and tomorrow, I have to go grocery shopping. I have a trip that starts on Sunday, and I don't want to work it. I do not want to work. I really don't want to work this trip. The only 2 reasons I'm going to work it, because I don't want to do it. I have to. First, I don't have enough, well, there's 3 reasons. I don't have enough vacation time to throw at this trip. It's worth 24 hours credit, and that's a lot of credit for a Las Vegas trip. And third, I'll be working with Antonio and Connor, who are 2 of the most amazing coworkers ever. I love them. I just spit again. I worked with them last week or the week before, and I love them. Any day is better with Antonio and Connor. I feel that way about a lot of my coworkers, but I just love these 2 guys so much. So, blah, blah, blah. I'm roasting in the car, and the post office closes in 45 minutes. So, let me get there, and I will see you shortly. I got the hat. Very excited. I don't love the quality. Ta-da, Starfield. Very happy with the look of the hat for the moment, but this is like a sticker. I thought it was a patch. Silly me for the money. And the hat itself is super flimsy. I've had a hat like this in the past, and anywhere that I've sweat up here, it just changes color. My Black Lives Matter hat looks like hell. Because I just sweat through it and it discolors everything. But for the money I paid, I get to rock a little Starfield. Very happy with that. So next, I'm probably going to hit the grocery store so I don't have to worry about it tomorrow. Trying to think of what I can share with you today on Vlogmas. I'm going to look through the questions in the comment section. There's one in particular I think I might answer. And then I think today will be a very short video because there's not a lot going on. All right, so I'll see you shortly. It is swelteringly hot in this car right now. It's still in the mid-90s here in Las Vegas. Let me fix my hair. It's going to cool off to the 60s next week. I'm very excited about that. So I'm going to answer 2 questions because there's a ton of questions. If you have left me a question, a comment, or anything, and I haven't responded to it or loved it, if you haven't received any of those notifications, it's probably because I'm retaining those questions or comments for a future video or a future occasion, like right now where my life is pretty simple and boring. You don't want to see me just sitting in my car all day. So I'm saving those things for later on. So Dion, I believe, asked a question. That's a very good question, and there should be a simple answer. There isn't. And I'm going to try my best to approach the topic. How are credit hours figured out? How do they figure out what we're paid for? So and there is like a whole hour-long video I could make on this because I love to talk about it. But so my next trip coming up, for example, is blocked at 24 hours. The language kind of helps you figure out what's going on. It's blocked at 24 hours. So the airline is expecting that it's going to take 24 hours from door closed to door open at our departure and arrival. That amount of time will equal almost 24 hours. That's just basic block hours. Now, if the flight, for example, by the end of the trip, if those hours were longer, say 26 hours, for example, I would be paid for those 26 hours, not just the ones that were scheduled. So there's that. I don't like those. I don't care if I get paid extra. I want to be home when I'm scheduled to be home. But say this trip coming up might not have a full block of 24 hours where I'm working, because I've got a 24-hour layover or a 23-hour layover in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm not working during the course of that day, but I do get paid for a certain number of hours for that day. I think it's up to $4, 4 hours, 4.5 hours, something like that. So we do get some credit for the time that we're away on a very long layover, and that's added to the basic block, and that equals out how we're paid for that trip. That's a very simple trip. Then there's something called trip rig, which is a very different story, and I really don't have any idea on how that's formulated. But the next trip I have, I think the following trip I have includes a deadhead. So not only am I going to get the block hours that I work from door closed to door open, I'm going to get paid for the hours that I'm deadheading. Now, if I'm deadheading, I'm going to be deadheading from LA to San Antonio. Now, that is blocked at like 3.5 hours, maybe, something like that. It might only take 2.5 hours. It might take 3 hours. I'll be paid for the greater of those number of hours that when it comes to the whole trip. Does that make any sense? But then I'm also paid credit for if I have a long layover during that trip, which I don't think I do. So you're really kind of, it's kind of more of a amorphic idea. There are people who are super skilled at being able to inventory their credit hours and their pay, their whatever, blah, blah, blah. So does that make any sense at all? If you're lost completely, welcome to being a brand new flight attendant, because it can be very confusing. But that's the gist of it. We also get credit, have credit for training. For example, if I go to recurrent, it might be an 8-hour day. I'm being paid for 4 hours. It might be a 10-hour day. Technically, I get paid for 4 hours. We get credit for, I don't know. I'm not sure else how we get credit. Yeah, that's a general idea. They've taken some things away from us when it comes to soft credit, and that's another verbiage. Soft credit would be anything that I wasn't working. Deadheading, long layovers, those are soft credit hours. We don't call it hard credit, but it is when you're actually working those hours. Blah, blah, blah. So there's that. Another question I'm asked often is, how did I become a makeup artist for Versace? And do I have a portfolio? And did I do models, or what did I do? So I'm going to try and do this as succinctly as possible, but we all know how I talk. I'm sorry. So my journey into cosmetics was kind of a weird one. It was a lot of me lying, proving I was better than I thought I was, and then ending up at a place I didn't expect it at all. So I started doing makeup in Faneuil Hall Marketplace in Quincy Market, if you know the area. It's a whole bunch of push carts selling things like magnets, hats, hot sauce. I started selling hot sauce on a cart. The woman on a cart next to us, Carol Lucas, she sold no-name makeup that she bought from like a no-name company, slapped her own sticker on it, and sold it on a cart in Quincy Market for $5 a piece, or I forget, but it was like 6 pieces for 20. I forget what it was. The makeup was absolute crap. I don't remember anything about it except number 6 chocolate cherry. Number 6 chocolate cherry. I just put it on people's hands. That's all I did. I put it on my hand. I put it on your hand. And that was it. She closed her cart mostly because the management at the marketplace hated her. So I was out of a job. I needed a job. So I ended up applying for something I saw on Craigslist or in a paper or something. Getting a job back in 1993 was very, very different than it is today. So I applied for this job. It was as a salesperson, not a makeup artist, at a beauty supply store in Lexington, Massachusetts. And so I went and I interviewed. I lied through my teeth, and I had real teeth back then. I lied through my teeth and told them I was a makeup artist and I knew what I was doing. They believed me. And yeah, I've never been a really great liar, so they probably heard what they wanted to hear, and there you go. So they hired me to sell makeup. It was mostly Ultima 2. If you're old enough to remember Ultima 2, it was Revlon's high-end line. They used to be sold in department stores, but then it went to like beauty supply stores and then died. But they had amazing makeup. The technology for the time, it was the first transfer-resistant foundation that had never been done before. The first super long-lasting lipstick, and it lasted longer than your lips did because your lips would peel off in sheets if you used it for too long. But it I was selling makeup in this beauty supply store. People would come in and I would just literally just sell it to them. One day this lady sat in the chair, which no one had done yet. This was probably 3 or 4 months into my working there. And she's wearing tennis whites. This is Lexington, Arlington, Lexington. It's like upper middle class people. And she's wearing tennis whites, older lady, probably in her late 60s. And she had this like Veronica Lake kind of hair going on, little bob, super cute, a lot of money. She's shopping, of course, because she's cheap at a beauty supply store. And she wanted me to do her makeup. I had never done makeup before. I had never applied makeup to another person. I had done drag a couple times badly. I just looked like some Portuguese, Italian, middle-aged lady, and I was like in my early 20s. I had never done makeup on a living soul. But so I said, so what would you like me to do? And she's like, you're the professional. I'm like, oh. So I don't remember what I did to her. Simple, easy makeup. Makeup back then, in their early 90s, was not what it is today. Makeup used to be about looking pretty. It used to be about idealizing your features and not creating a new nose or new jawline or highlighting your face to the point where you look like a Tin Man or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer with that little bit of reflection on the tip of your nose. Sorry, I have very strong opinions on highlighter and contouring, and they're not good. Lashes, no one wore eyelashes except for drag queens at the time. And old ladies, they get the little Ardell singles that you just drop in there. Again, I have very strong opinions on false lashes. But I did her makeup and she liked it. She goes, so do you do weddings? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I do weddings. Again, lying through my teeth. I was a very poor liar, but again, she heard what she wanted to hear, and that was that I was very cheap. Because I think I told her I would charge $50 a person, and that was pretty cheap at the time for wedding makeup. So I threw all of the testers I had in a tackle box, literally a tackle box, threw all the testers in there, and I showed up and there were like 7 women plus the bride, and I had to do all of their makeup. Thankfully, like I said, makeup at the time wasn't like architecture. We weren't using like, girders as they do now if you watch any YouTube video on contouring. So I did their makeup, and they all looked sweet. They all looked very pretty. They were all young, nothing wrong with them. None of them were disfigured, so it wasn't difficult to do her makeup. The one girl that was very unhappy, she cried. She saw herself in the mirror. All of her friends were very happy. I think she was probably the best. She went in the bathroom and started crying hysterically because I covered up her freckles. Redhead covered in freckles. So I fixed it. I took off her makeup. I thinned out my foundation. I made it a little more translucent. Blah, blah, blah. I wasn't even tipped. But that was my first makeup job for a wedding. Word gets around in small towns that you got a cheap makeup artist. I was doing every Tom, Dick, and Sally's wedding in Lexington and Arlington. So I eventually wanted to get more money and better hours. So I left the beauty supply store. That was Boston Beauty Supply. Boston Beauty Supply on Mass Ave in Lexington, if you know it. Say hi to everybody for me. But I went to Lord and Taylor, which is kind of like a Macy's. And I got a job at Estee Lauder selling makeup and doing and skincare and stuff like that. To this day, I still love the Verite line, if they still make it, for Estee Lauder. But I started doing makeup, and Estee Lauder was really fantastic. They, it wasn't about how much you sold that day, which is a good thing, because that store on Boylston Street in Boston was dead. It wasn't about how much money you sold, how many products, but how many customers you touched. It was really all about service at the time. I'm sure it's very different now. So I did what I could. Then I left Estee Lauder and went to Clarins because I thought it was a better skincare line. I loved their makeup. I loved everything about it except for every sample I gave out. And Clarins was very big on samples. You had to contact them 2 or 3 days later. I literally had to get your phone number to call you and say, hey, how did you like that moisturizer? What? That sample I gave you. What do you mean? Who are you? Yeah, you had to call everybody, and I hated it. So I went to Clinique. I know the story gets better in a moment, I'm sorry. So I went over to Clinique. To this day, if I had untold amounts of money, I would still buy Clinique. After, I would buy Natura Bissé. I lied. Natura Bissé, it's a Spanish skincare line. It's beautiful. I mean, but I love Clinique. It's simple, it's effective, it works. I was working for Clinique. I know the story will. I know it. I know my stories are long. I'm sorry. So there was this one day. This woman brought in a friend. I thought it was a woman. Into the store. Sat this woman. It was a woman, in fact, down in the chair. And if you saw her, you'd know she was rough. She was rough. South Boston wasn't a destination back then. She was a rough girl. The poor thing had a difficult life. But her husband had just left her and she was just feeling awful. Her sister brought her in for a makeover thinking it might help. Well, she sat in the chair and told me what was going on because people talk to me. And she's weeping. And I'm like, listen, let's dry your eyes. Let's understand that men suck. It's not your fault. Whatever. Let's do some makeup, right? Let's just focus. And so I did her makeup. And I don't think she had ever felt pretty in her life. I turned her, I put the mirror up, and she looked in the mirror, and she felt pretty for the first time in her life. And she erupted in tears, making me do a lot of work over again. But the poor thing, like, for example, she walked in with this, like, it wasn't a mullet, but it was kind of a mullet. And she had this, what used to be a white sweatshirt, but it was pink because it had been washed with the wrong clothes. And it had a big white cat decal on the front. And it wasn't an ironic sweatshirt from like Urban Outfitters. This is what she really thought was what was appropriate to wear in public. Excuse me. Even now I'm upset by that sweatshirt. But it was just one of the nicest experiences I could remember. And back then, I was still a giant jerk. I was actively an alcoholic, and I loved to make people cry, but not for good reasons. Like, I still enjoyed being mean. So this was actually kind of refreshing for the both of us. A few weeks later, I get a phone call. This is where the story goes to Versace. A few weeks later, I get a phone call at work from Dave Dodge. Dave Dodge was the Simon Cowell of cosmetics in Boston. He made and broke careers. With the raise of an eyebrow, he could change your life. And he called me up and he said, hey, my name is Dave Dodge. I'm over at Neiman Marcus. I have heard good things about you. Would you come and speak to me about some opportunity we may have for you here at Neiman Marcus? I knew who Dave Dodge was. I had never set foot in Neiman Marcus before. My people don't go to Neiman Marcus. My people are definitely more I don't know, Stop and Shop or not Neiman Marcus. So I went over and I interviewed with Dave Dodge, which felt, I knew what was going to happen was going to be good or bad. And he ended up offering me a makeup artist position at Versace, which is a new cosmetic line in the States at the time. This is 1998, I think, 1999. It had just arrived in the country. It was in very few locations was I interested. Now, remember, just a couple years before, I had never done makeup before in my life. I had done drag a couple times, but I didn't know what I was doing. They hired me, and for some reason, I was really good. There's something about me that when someone says something, I can kind of translate it in my head as to what reality might look like and what you're asking for, what works and what would work best for you. Somehow I'm able to put those two things together often enough. And it worked. I was really good. I was really good. There's no portfolio because no one thought that I'd be doing this for very long. And then because there was in such a few number of places, I ended up working regionally, which means like 3 stores. I mean, I didn't have like the East Coast. There's like 3 stores. If they're going to have a makeup event or a cosmetic event, they'd book me, and then I would have appointments made for me by the counters. Rarely were there actually appointments, so I would just often stand there with my brushes, you know, waiting, I would grab somebody out of the aisles, because it's always easier to get someone to the counter when someone's already in your chair. The story did not mean to be as full as it was, but that's how I started, how I ended up being a makeup artist for Versace, from originally working in Quincy Market selling hot sauce. Ta-da! So, about that time, that was the very, very late 1990s into the beginning of 2001, 2002. They pulled out of the country. Versace was no longer available. You can still buy pieces of it on eBay, and it's gorgeous. If you're blonde, I don't know if they make it anymore. Their taupe eyebrow pencil, it used to be numbered 2000, is the best in the world. Anastasia Who. This was the best eyebrow pencil on the market. I would dip it in caramel and nuts, drizzle it with chocolate, and eat it. It was the best brow. You could write with it. It was so dry, but it would perform surge. It was the best brow pencil ever. But that was how I ended up doing makeup for Versace. When Versace pulled out of the country, I ended up staying at Neiman Marcus and working downstairs in fragrances, and then men's accessories, and then jewelry, and then fine jewelry. And that's when I jumped ship, because Neiman Marcus went from being a place where you could have a career to where they started hiring 22-year-olds who didn't care about the position, didn't see being of service to people as being a position of a desirable position. And the salespeople at Neiman's, it really slipped. It really slipped from professional salespeople, thank you, to people who would just, I don't know. It was a very difficult time to, it was time to leave Neiman's. I didn't find it to be much better at Saks, but blah, blah, blah. That's another story. All right. I have spent the last 21 minutes talking to you quickly about my makeup history. So I think I'm done. I think I'm done. I suspect that that's all that's going to happen today, except for me hitting Sprouts for some food, but I might do that tomorrow. So, ta-da! Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, be nice. And I'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye. Fly safe. I almost didn't say it.